It feels like we've, thank you, Carla. It feels like it's been a few weeks since we've been together with spring break and all the other activities of the legislature. So I'm just going to turn it over to you, Clay. Let you give us an update on lots of happenings this week. Busy
It,
week in Montgomery. So with that, floor is yours.
thank you. Good morning, everyone. It has been a busy week, busy couple of weeks, busy session in general. Last week was week 7, and the House passed the general fund budget last week. So it's heading to the Senate. The general fund this year, they wound up with 3.67 billion, which is a $309 million increase. And a lot of that is associated with increased Medicaid costs, the prisons, um, etc. A couple of good things that are in that. The 3 million for the Port of the Mobile. The governor actually recommended 1 million to them. The House jumped that up to 3 million, so that's good. And then doubled what the governor had recommended uh, uh, to a total of 15 million to the ADECA Airport Development Grant Program. So, that program for any of y'all who have general aviation airports in your areas. I always found that was one of the best investments you can make because the FAA gives a significant match to qualified projects on that. So, strongly encourage um, you know, you ought to make sure that your local airports are taking advantage of that. It certainly looks as though the legislature is making that a priority and funding that. This in this week, uh, week 8, um, we have it was a 3-day work week this week, so we wound up with the 21st legislative day yesterday. So 9 more to go, y'all. We are ready. Um, Very busy week this week. The Senate passed the ETF yesterday, the Education Trust Fund, so it'll head to the House. So now, as I say, the general funds in the Senate, ETFs in the House. 10 billion. That is another record when you factor in all of the supplemental, all the other funds. The state of Alabama is investing $12 billion in the education of our children and 2-year and 4-year folks. That represents a $543 million increase. There's also a $524 million supplemental. Another really interesting bill tied to that passed called the RAISE Act. Um, it's it's a start to recalibrating how the state funds schools. It's in the past with the foundation program has been done more on a head count. This is sort of a start to shift towards more student needs. In my former district, we had some school systems that had a high population of ESL, English Second Language learners. Crystal and Decatur, that area, those schools also have a high population in those, and those are uh, very expensive uh, kids to educate, as well as more more, higher poverty areas. Those are more expensive. Special ed, gifted, those are expensive, and so it's shifting, and I think in a very positive way, to more needs based and more granular as far as what those student populations are in those school systems, rather than just by head count. So this is a step in that direction. So the one of the bills created that, and the other shifted about 375 million out of the Educational Opportunities Reserve Fund, and that's one of the funds that we created, that sort of. It's a savings account for if the economy turns down, which inevitably it will. Then we have the state has some padding, that coupled with the Rolling Reserve Act that forces the state to budget conservatively, um, and forces us to put money aside for rainy days. One of the best bills I ever voted for, and I know y'all have heard me talk a lot about it, but we're slowly, there's less and less legislators, both in the Senate and the House, that were here, um, or in office when we experienced proration, that led to the creation of the Rolling Reserve Budget Act. And I think it's very important to continue to remind everyone of where we have come from as a state, and how intentional it was to get us to this point. I think is critical, moving forward, particularly, as y'all heard me say. My prediction is probably for the 27, 28 budgets. Things are going to get much more tight, and so having that budgeting process the way it is, and having those reserve funds will be absolutely critical. And more than likely, I could foresee in the future, uh, perhaps some attempts by some groups to try to pull that back, which I think would be a huge mistake. The PBM bill received final passage in the House last week, so it is on its way to the governor. Um, we were successful in getting the private right of action language removed from the bill, and as well as there was another amendment that would put back language in the bill that allowed companies, through a contractual agreement with their PBM, that dealing with the rebates. Rebates come down from, or let me back up. PBMs negotiate with uh, drug manufacturers on rebates. It's this whole wonky thing. And so, some companies allow the PBM in exchange for, fees or whatever payment for their services, to keep some of those rebates. It's a tax issue, and so that went back in there, and so sort of just some right to contract, um, for companies. So that was certainly a win for the business community, having both of those out of there. As I've mentioned in the past, the cost has been cut down significantly, although we still believe that there will be increased costs for companies. But with the big boxes and the chains out of the bill, that certainly helps. And specialty drugs being removed from that. The specialty drugs make up a small volume, of total drugs, around 2%, of scripts or specialty drugs, but they make up about 89% of total drug costs. So that would have been a significant increase if companies could not, and again, it just depends on the company. Um, but if a company lost the right to, for instance, if you can get a specialty drug much cheaper, and this is definitely the case in a lot of instances, but if it is cheaper to get a specialty drug through mail order, um, then a specialty drugs being out of this, um, let me back up. Originally, this is a complicated issue, and it's hard to explain it. I'm not doing a good job. But in previous, when the specialty drugs were in the bill, a company could not require their employee, if it is cheaper to get the specialty drug through mail order or by any other means, but instead they had to go to a pharmacy to get it, that would have increased. That's where a huge part of the cost was. So eliminating them does bring down the cost. So we lost out on a lot, but we did make a good effort in bringing the cost down. The Alpha Health Plan passed the House yesterday after some lengthy floor debate. Um, BCA's language, and it'll move to the Senate. BCA's language is still in there. Our concern was that, again, this is an unregulated product. And so um, current health plans, because of the ACA, cannot deny pre-existing conditions. So our worry was, shoot, if this new product is much cheaper, they could swap um, healthy people that are covered under employee sponsored health plans, just leaving unhealthy people or more unhealthy people, and obviously costs would go up. And so we were successful in getting language in there, working with Alpha to keep that from happening. The there were other amendments put on in committee that certainly make the bill better. Um, some language was put in that would put it under the oversight of the Department of Insurance. That language was stripped out on the floor. I would imagine there will be efforts to get that back in the Senate. So just have to wait and see. There's a data privacy bill that we've been working on, or some extremely intelligent attorneys have been working on our behalf, because this is way over our heads. So don't ask me what it is, but it certainly would impact a lot of companies. Um, the sponsor, Representative Shaw, has been great to work with on this. He has been working with us before he even files the bill. I think we're somewhere on the eighth or ninth iteration of this bill. So he may be dropping it next week. We'll see. So we're really excited. Three bills were filed in the Senate last week that are part of a package called Powering Growth. One bill uh, creates the Energy Infrastructure Bank. Um, the other bill is kind of the funding mechanism for the Energy Infrastructure Bank. And then the other is a bill to quicken and streamline permitting. And so essentially where this is going, Commerce is leading this effort. And where this is going is, the state of Alabama has been very intentional to um, make investments that improve our infrastructure in the state. Obviously, Rebuild Alabama was intended to make serious investments in our roads, our bridges, and our port. Um, we have been making serious, significant investments in improving our broadband infrastructure, particularly in our rural areas. Through the ARPA grant process, the state invested serious dollars in improving our water and sewer infrastructure. So naturally, the next step should be our energy and gas infrastructure. We have had projects in parts of Alabama that have not been able to come to fruition because we could not, through the supply chain, could not get them set up with the infrastructure that they need based off their timeline. And so we simply can't allow that to happen, coupled with what President Trump wants to do as far as unleashing America's energy dominance. So we believe very strongly that Alabama needs to be proactive. You know, kind of, we go back to the Seeds Act. We have become victims of our own success. We have focused on improving our incentives, improving our infrastructure, improving our workforce delivery methods, and we wound up, we don't have enough developable industrial parks. And so that's where the Seeds Act came from, to keep us from, getting in that situation again. And so the power and growth package is in that same vein, to keep us out of head out ahead before there is a problem. And so we're going to be making investments. These will be loans to our utility public utility providers and our gas providers. It's not a certainly not a giveaway or anything like that. It will be a loan, so that we can stay out front and continue to outpace the growth when it comes to our infrastructure. Keep in mind, I mean, with AI and these data centers, et cetera, they are very energy reliant, and so we have to make sure that we are staying leaps and bounds ahead of where their needs are going to be. So we're very excited about that package, and we're excited that Commerce and the legislature are having the foresight to make that a priority. Obviously, this is a priority of the Growth Alliance, that is the public-private partnership between the state government and the business community. So we're excited to see that is certainly working, and that the legislature is making it a priority and paying attention to what comes out of that committee. Next week will be week 9, so the 22nd. We'll start on the 22nd day. Expect there to be a 2-day work week next week. So they'll be focusing on budgets from here on, and some of these stuff that have kind of crossed. But the PBM bill was a big one that they have off their plates at this point. So with that, be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Clay. I'm sure we probably have some questions, but you mentioned the budgets have crossed over. Senate Pro Tem Gudger's kind of taken gaming off the table. So do you, and we've got the 3 bills that now are in the Senate. Anything that you're anticipating, any surprises in these last 9 days, or anything that's not hit the ground yet?
I'm not so sure. I I get the sense that I mean this has been a rough session. It's been a stressful session for them, and I would suspect that they're ready to go. Um, Anna might could shed more light on that, but I do think that they're probably ready to go with the fights that they've seen and you know been put in the middle of. You know, I would be surprised if there's a whole lot more. A whole lot more fireworks. Obviously, the Alpha bill will generate some um, contention in the Senate, probably. I would imagine, but yeah, it's hard to say. There's still a, you know, we still don't like the debanking bill that's out there. Hopefully, they're gonna, you know, that bill will stay in committee and not make it out. Obviously, we're continuing to monitor that, but you know, hopefully they'll just focus on the budgets and it won't be too bad going forward. They'll
Very
have
good.
to finish, you know, as far as the Senate goes, finish out, you know, confirmations. There's always local bills out there, but I would expect it to be, you know, relatively smooth sailing, hopefully. But it's Alabama legislature. You never know.
Very good. Anybody have any other questions for Clay? All right. I will mention Tuesday morning briefing, kind of getting towards the end of those, but I know you guys mentioned this week when we had um
Leader
St
Stothagen.
Stodhagen. I'm always terrified to say his last name because I'm gonna mispronounce it. Stodhagen.
Everybody is.
Yes. So, but next Tuesday, if you have an opportunity to tune in live or then watch the follow-up, it is going to be Greg Reed, which is obviously an area that a lot of our chambers are interested in. So it'll be great to hear from him now that he's um, in that role with Workforce. So just a plug for that for everybody to tune in if you can't be with us in Montgomery on Tuesday. 9
Yeah, should be a
9
great
a.m.
one. Yep,
Yep.
yep. We're really excited about hearing what Greg has to say.
And will that be the last of the Tuesday morning briefings?
We're thinking so. I'm literally about to text the team and
Okay.
us talk about if we, it really starts to attendance starts to trail off in a big way. I'm you know this you know one of the reasons we've saved Greg toward the end. We think that people will be very interested to you know hear what he has to say. Plus, give him more time to be there. So I don't know. We kind of felt bad because toward the end we just didn't have a lot of attendance, and you know there's not as much to talk about at that you know at that point. So
Understood.
we'll I guess make a decision here in a minute, and we'll see.
Very good. Well, if no one has any further questions, just a reminder that all of our capital briefings are available on our YouTube if you need to go back and watch any of them. We also see a good number of people that watch them after, if they're not able to make it on Friday morning. So with that, we will see some of you in a couple of weeks in Auburn. We're excited to be there in just about 10 days or so. So, thank you guys. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Thank y'all.